When I went to get the car keys for my daughter's graduation, all the doors were locked. I just stood there, like a fool, trying each one. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if, for just a second, this feels familiar, I only ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. My name is Rose Herrera. I'm 67 years old, and I live in a small stucco house on the outskirts of San Antonio, a house I bought with my own two hands 30 years ago. That morning, May 15th, I woke up at 5, same as always. I lit the gas stove to heat up the coffee with cinnamon, the way my mother, God rest her soul, taught me to make it. The aroma filled the whole kitchen while I ironed my red dress with the embroidered flowers, the one I saved for the most special occasions in my life. I'd only slept about 3 hours, staying up all night to put the finishing touches on a silver bracelet with my daughter's name engraved on it. My fingers were trembling with excitement and exhaustion, but every stitch was for her, for my Jessica, my little girl who was graduating as a lawyer after so many years of sacrifice. The red dress was a little tight. The years don't forgive, and my body isn't what it used to be. But I did my hair in the same curls I wore when Jessica was little, put on the pearl earrings my late mother gave me, and even put on some red lipstick I'd had saved away for who knows how long. When my youngest grandson, Sebastian, who's only 8, saw me coming down the stairs, his eyes went wide as saucers and he said, "Grandma, you look as pretty as the ladies on Mom's TV shows." Those words filled my chest with a tenderness so deep I almost started crying right there. I knelt down, hugged him tight, and said, "Thank you, my love. Today, your Aunt Jessica is graduating, and I want her to be proud of her mom." Since 4 in the morning, I'd been cooking red enchiladas with shredded chicken, Jessica's favorite since she was a little girl. I made a huge pot because I thought that after the ceremony we'd all come back here to celebrate, like we used to, back when we were still a real family. I also made fresh hibiscus iced tea and tied red and gold balloons in the backyard. Jessica is my only child. I raised her alone since she was 5, when her father left us for some 20-year-old he met at work. He never showed his face again, never sent a single dollar for her upbringing. I was left with a little girl, no money, no family to help, and a broken heart that took me years to piece back together. But I made it. I washed other people's clothes at the public laundromats until my hands cracked and bled. I sold roasted corn and fruit cups from a cart at the entrance to Market Square, under a sun that burns and a rain that soaks you to the bone. I sewed prom dresses and wedding gowns at night, when Jessica was already asleep, by the light of a lamp we bought at a flea market that barely lit up the room. My eyes got so bad I need glasses for everything now, but it was worth it. Every dollar I earned was for her notebooks, her school uniforms, her shoes that wore out so fast because she ran so much at recess, for her high school textbooks, which cost a fortune, for the private university where she wanted to study law because, in her words, the state school didn't have the right connections. I was her mother and her father. I went to every parent-teacher conference, every Mother's Day pageant where she recited poems. I took her to the doctor every time she got sick, stayed up with her when she had a fever, taught her how to ride a bike in the neighborhood park. I bought her first bra when she turned 13 and explained everything a mother needs to explain to her daughter when she becomes a woman. When she married Gerald 5 years ago, I thought she would finally have the support she always lacked. Gerald worked for a construction company, had a good salary, and seemed to love her very much. He even told me I was like a second mother to him, that he would always take care of me and respect me. But things started to change when they moved into a bigger house in a middle-class neighborhood. Gerald started making comments about the way I dressed, the way I talked, about the meals I cooked when they came to visit. "Mrs. Herrera," he'd say with that fake smile he put on when he wanted to make a good impression, "you should modernize a bit. People don't eat so much spicy food anymore. They don't wear such loud colors. Everything is more understated now." I didn't quite understand what he meant, but I started to feel like I was no longer welcome in my own daughter's life. The visits became shorter, the calls less frequent. My grandchildren, Sebastian and Camilla, only came to see me when they needed me to babysit because Jessica and Gerald had some social event. That morning of the graduation, after getting ready with so much care, after preparing everything for the celebration, I went to Jessica's room to ask her what time we were leaving for the event. She was putting on makeup in front of the vanity I gave her for her 15th birthday, the same one where she used to get ready for Sunday church as a little girl. "Honey," I said, "what time are we leaving?" "I have everything ready." She didn't even turn to look at me. She kept applying that expensive mascara she always wore now. "Leaving for where?" she asked, as if she didn't know what I was talking about. "To your graduation, of course. I'm all ready. I have your gift wrapped." It was then that Gerald walked into the room. He looked me up and down with a grimace of disgust I will never forget, lowered his voice as if he were about to tell me a terrible secret, and said the words that shattered my soul. "You're not going. Don't be ridiculous, ma'am. You won't fit in with the people who will be there." I felt like a bucket of ice water had been thrown over me. My legs trembled. "What do you mean I'm not going?" "I'm her mother," I said, my voice breaking. "Exactly," he replied with a coldness that froze my blood. "Her poor, old, out-of-place mother. Jessica doesn't want you to ruin the most important day of her life. It's better if you just stay here and don't make a scene." I looked at my daughter, waiting for her to say something, to defend me, to tell that man to shut up, but she just kept putting on her makeup as if she hadn't heard a thing, as if I weren't standing there with my heart breaking into a million pieces. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat, but I didn't say another word. I went to my room, sat in front of the mirror where I had gotten ready with so much love, and just stared at this 67-year-old woman I no longer recognized. It must be a mistake, I told myself over and over. It's probably just a bad joke. My daughter can't be this cruel. Not after everything I did for her. But deep in my heart, I already knew it wasn't a mistake. It was the most painful truth I had ever had to face in my entire life. My own daughter was ashamed of me. At 5 in the afternoon, when we should have been leaving for the convention center where the ceremony was being held, I went to look for the car keys. The front gate was padlocked. The garden gate, too. My old white Toyota Corolla, the one I bought used 10 years ago by working double shifts at a bakery, was gone from the driveway. I ran from one door to another like a madwoman, pulling on the handles, rattling the metal bars that separated me from the outside world. My hands trembled as I dialed Jessica's number on my old flip phone, the one she always said was an embarrassment, because the keys were worn and the screen was scratched. Nothing. Voicemail. I went back to my room, my legs barely holding me up. I sat on the edge of my bed, the one I inherited from my mother and that Gerald always criticized for being too old and cheap. My phone buzzed. It was a text message. "Just stay there, Mom. Don't make a drama. Everything's already arranged." I stared at those words until my eyes blurred. My heart was pounding like it was going to burst out of my chest. With trembling fingers, I wrote back, "What does this mean, Jessica?" I saw the 2 blue check marks appear immediately. She was online. She'd read my message, but she didn't reply. I waited 5 minutes, 10, half an hour. Nothing. Outside, I could hear cars passing, families on their way to graduations, to parties, to celebrations where the children actually wanted their mothers with them. And there I was, locked up like a prisoner, in my red dress that now felt ridiculous, with the silver bracelet wrapped in gift paper that no one was going to receive. That night, while they were at the most important ceremony of my daughter's life, I sat in the kitchen, remembering everything I had done for her. I pulled out an old notebook from a drawer where I had written down every expense, every sacrifice, every dollar I invested in her future. The pages were yellowed and some were falling apart in my fingers, but it was all there. January 15th, 1995, $30 for school supplies, had to borrow from Mrs. Rodriguez. March 23rd, 1995, $40 for new shoes, sold my engagement ring at the pawn shop. September 12th, 1998, $100 for middle school uniform. Worked 3 extra days at the bakery. Page after page of an entire life dedicated to helping her get ahead. I remembered when she was 8 and got bronchitis. I didn't have money for a private doctor, so we stood in line at the county clinic from 4 in the morning. Jessica was coughing so hard it sounded like she was choking, and I held her in my arms for 5 hours until they finally saw us. When the doctor told me she needed an expensive medication, I left the clinic and went straight to the pawn shop. I sold the gold earrings my mother had given me before she died, the only valuable things I owned. The man at the shop offered me pennies on the dollar, but I couldn't negotiate. My daughter was choking on her own cough. I also remembered her 16th birthday. All her friends were having huge sweet 16 parties in fancy halls, with expensive dresses and DJs. Jessica cried every day because she wanted the same. I worked day and night for 6 months sewing dresses for other girls, saving every dollar I could. In the end, I managed to rent a small community hall, hired a local band, and bought her a pink dress I saw in a downtown store. It wasn't the fanciest thing in the world, but it was bought with all my love. That night, as she danced with the neighbor's son because she didn't have a father to dance with, Jessica hugged me and whispered in my ear, "Thank you, Mommy. You're the best mom in the world." Where had that girl gone? At what point had my daughter, the one I raised with so much love, turned into this woman who was ashamed of me? I thought about all the boyfriends she'd had before Gerald. Good boys who came to the house, who treated me with respect, who helped with expenses when they could. But Jessica always left them because she said they had no ambition, that they weren't going to get her out of this neighborhood. When she met Gerald at a university party, she came home talking about him like he was a prince. He worked for a major construction firm, had his own car. His family had a house in an upscale gated community. I was happy for her because I thought my daughter would finally have the stability I could never give her. The first time Gerald came to our house for dinner, I made my pot roast from scratch, the kind that simmers all day because you have to sear the meat just right. I set the table with the embroidered tablecloth my grandmother had made, took out the good plates I saved for special guests. I put on my best dress and did my hair nicely. Gerald arrived an hour late. When he sat at the table, he made a face after trying the roast and said to Jessica, "Does your mom always cook such heavy food? My stomach isn't used to such rustic meals." Jessica just laughed and said, "Oh, forgive him, Mom. He's used to more international cuisine. Maybe you could make something more modern next time?" I swallowed the humiliation with a smile. He's young, I thought. He'll learn to appreciate tradition. But he never did. Every time he came over, he found something wrong with my house, my food, my way of being. And the worst part was that Jessica started to see me through his eyes. "Mom, why don't you buy some more modern clothes?" she'd say. "You shouldn't wear such bright colors. They make you look older." "Mom, could you not tell those stories about when we were poor? It makes Gerald uncomfortable." "Mom, could you speak a little softer when his friends come over? Your voice is very loud." Little by little, I began to disappear from my own daughter's life. When they got married, I thought things would get better. I was hopeful I'd be part of their new family, that I'd get to enjoy my grandkids, that we'd finally have the close relationship I always dreamed of. But after the wedding, the visits became rarer and rarer. They no longer invited me to family dinners with his parents. They no longer included me in their weekend outings. When the kids were born, I was good enough to watch them when they had social commitments, but not good enough to appear in the family photos they posted on social media. I remember the day Sebastian broke his arm playing soccer at school. Jessica called me in a panic because she and Gerald were in a work meeting and needed someone to go to the hospital. I dropped everything I was doing, took a cab that cost me money I didn't have, and rushed to the university hospital. I stayed with my grandson all afternoon. I bought him candy so he wouldn't cry, told him stories while we waited for the doctor, and held him when they put the cast on. When Jessica and Gerald arrived 3 hours later, they didn't even thank me. They just asked the doctor what had happened, and took the boy as if I hadn't been there. That night, they came back to the house and gave me $20 for the cab, as if I were a hired hand they'd paid to watch their son. But what hurt the most was seeing how my grandchildren started treating me differently. Sebastian and Camilla, who used to run and hug me the moment I arrived, now barely said hello. Gerald had filled their heads with ideas about successful people and people who don't get ahead. One day I overheard Camilla, who's only 10, telling a friend, "My grandma is kinda weird. She wears ugly clothes and smells like spices. My dad says it's because she comes from a family that never knew how to better themselves." Those words stabbed me like knives. My own granddaughter, the child of the daughter I had raised with so much sacrifice, repeating the cruel things they taught her about me. And now here I was, locked in my own house on the most important day of my daughter's life, remembering all these moments while the enchiladas grew cold on the stove and the balloons slowly deflated in the yard. I got up from the table, went to the bathroom, and looked in the mirror. The woman looking back at me had eyes red from crying, her makeup smeared, her hair a mess. The red dress that had made me feel so pretty that morning now looked like a ridiculous costume. I took off the pearl earrings, washed my face with cold water, and put on my everyday clothes. There was no point pretending I was welcome in my daughter's new life anymore. It was time to accept the truth. Everything I had done for her had meant nothing. The hours passed like centuries. At 11 at night, I heard the sound of the automatic gate opening. Cheerful voices, laughter, the click of heels on the concrete patio. I peeked out my bedroom window and saw them arrive. Jessica, radiant in her black cap and gown, Gerald carrying a huge bouquet of flowers, and behind them, his parents carrying bags from some expensive restaurant. No one looked toward my window. No one asked how I had been. They walked right past as if my room were invisible. I stayed awake until 3 in the morning, listening to their celebration in the living room. Laughter, music, the clinking of glasses toasting my daughter's brilliant future, a future of which I, apparently, was not a part. The next morning, I woke up at 5 as usual. I made coffee and sat in the kitchen, waiting for someone to come down, for someone to tell me how the ceremony was, for someone to show me the diploma we had fought so hard for. Jessica didn't appear until 11, with dark circles under her eyes and looking hungover. She opened the fridge, drank orange juice straight from the carton, and when she saw me sitting there, she looked at me as if I were a piece of furniture in the way. "Good morning, honey," I said, in the softest voice I could manage. "How was your graduation?" "Fine," she answered without looking at me, scrolling through her phone. "Can you tell me about it? Was the ceremony nice?" She sighed with annoyance. "Mom, it's a little late for that, don't you think?" She poured cereal into a bowl and went to the living room without another word. I just sat there, my hands trembling around my coffee mug, wondering how it was possible that the most important moment in my daughter's life had become something I was completely excluded from. Later, as I was washing the breakfast dishes, I heard Jessica yell to Gerald from their room, "Honey, I uploaded the pictures. Come see how great they turned out." Something inside me snapped. I left the dishes in the sink and went up the stairs, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I knocked on their bedroom door. "Can I see the pictures, honey?" "I'm busy right now," she yelled from inside. "I just want to see one picture of your graduation. Just one." "I can't right now, Mom. Don't you get it?" I went back down to my room, defeated. I opened my old phone with trembling hands and looked up Jessica's Facebook profile. What I saw there broke me in a way I never thought possible. Photo after photo of the ceremony. Jessica in her gown, smiling radiantly, hugging Gerald. Jessica with her in-laws, all elegant and happy. Jessica receiving her diploma. Jessica at the restaurant, toasting with champagne. Jessica cutting a cake that said, "Congratulations, Jessica Escori." And in the caption of the first photo, with over 100 likes and dozens of comments, she had written, "The happiest day of my life. Thank you to everyone who supported me on this journey. Thank you for always being there for me. Thank you for so much love and unconditional support. I love you all with my whole soul." Not one mention of me, not a single word, not a shred of acknowledgement. As if I, the one who stayed up late helping her with homework, the one who sold everything I had to pay for her university, the one who worked until I was sick to give her everything she needed, had never even existed. I kept scrolling through the photos, and with each one, I realized something terrible. There wasn't a single empty space where I could have been. They had planned everything without me from the start. The table at the restaurant had the exact number of chairs they needed. The reservations were made for a specific number of people that did not include me. Even the corsages they wore were coordinated among them. I hadn't been excluded by accident. I had been excluded on purpose, with premeditation, with malice. I read the comments from her friends and acquaintances. "What a beautiful family. You can tell you have so much support. Your in-laws look adorable. You're so lucky. Gerald is the best husband. You can see how much he loves you. Everyone must be so proud of you. Everyone congratulating her on the perfect family she had built. A family that did not include me. I closed my phone and threw myself on the bed, crying like I hadn't cried since my mother died. But these tears were different. They weren't tears of sadness for a natural, inevitable loss. They were tears of humiliation, of betrayal, of a wound inflicted on me deliberately by the people I loved most in the world. That afternoon, Jessica came down to the kitchen and left a plastic bag on the table. "Here are the leftovers from the dinner," she said without looking up. "If you don't like it, too bad." I opened the bag. There were scraps of cold food, a piece of chicken in a cream sauce, some dry-looking rice, a hard dinner roll, the scraps from a celebration where I should have been a guest of honor. "Why did you do this, Jessica?" I asked, my soul torn to shreds. "Why did you hurt me like this?" Jessica just shrugged, as if I were asking about the weather. "Because you don't understand anything, Mom. You're just too... you. You've never fit in anywhere important. And yesterday was my day. I didn't want anyone feeling awkward because of you." "Awkward? Because of me? I'm your mother, Jessica. I'm the one who raised you." "Exactly," she replied with a coldness that chilled me to the bone, always reminding me where I come from, always with that victim attitude, as if the world owes you something. I just don't want that negative energy in my new life anymore. She left the kitchen, leaving me standing there with the bag of leftovers in my hands, feeling like a beggar being handed scraps from the rich man's table. The following days were a silent torture. Jessica and Gerald continued living their normal lives in the house, but I had become invisible. They walked past me as if I were a ghost. They didn't speak to me unless it was absolutely necessary. When I tried to start a conversation, they answered in monosyllables or with exasperated sighs. One morning, as they were eating breakfast at the kitchen table, I heard Gerald say to Jessica, "I got that information you asked for about the senior living facilities. There's one in Bourne that's not too expensive, and another one down in Pleasanton that's pretty good. How much are they?" Jessica asked as she spread jam on her toast. "The one in Bourne is about $4,000 a month. The one in Pleasanton, maybe $2,500. But that one looks more... basic. We'll see. First, I need her to sign the house papers. Once that's taken care of, we'll figure out what to do with her." They spoke of me as if I were an inconvenience to be dealt with, like an old piece of furniture that was no longer useful, but that they felt bad about throwing away. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed listening to the sounds of the house, the hum of the refrigerator, the tick-tock of the living room clock, the muffled murmurs of Jessica and Gerald coming through the walls. I realized I'd been feeling like a stranger in my own home for weeks, like an unwanted guest who had overstayed their welcome. The next day, while they were at work, I decided to search Jessica's room. I don't know what I expected to find, but I needed to understand how we had reached this point, how my own daughter had come to resent me so much. In her dresser drawer, I found a folder with documents. I immediately recognized my birth certificate, my ID, and several papers for the house that I didn't remember signing. There was also a document from a notary public dated 3 months earlier, long before the graduation. It was a power of attorney where I had supposedly granted Jessica the right to manage all my assets and make decisions about my well-being if she deemed me mentally unfit to do so myself. My signature was there, but I had no memory of ever signing that paper. Then I remembered an afternoon a few months ago when Jessica told me she needed my signature for some health insurance papers that would benefit me. I signed without reading, trusting her as I always had. She had tricked me. She had made me sign my own civil death warrant. With trembling hands, I kept looking through the papers. There was also a quote from a nursing home in Bourne, letters from banks inquiring about a loan using my house as collateral, and something that utterly destroyed me. A sheet of paper where they had calculated how much money they could get if they sold the house and sent me to the cheapest facility they could find. They had circled the difference in red, $250,000. The price of getting rid of me. I sat on the floor of my daughter's room, surrounded by the proof of her betrayal, and I finally understood the truth I had been refusing to see. They hadn't excluded me from the graduation out of shame. They had excluded me because they had already decided I was not part of their future, and they had been planning how to remove me from their lives for months. I put all the documents back exactly as I had found them and left Jessica's room, my legs shaking. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and sat down to wait. For the first time in my life, I was going to confront my daughter with a truth that hurt more than any physical blow. When they got home from work at 7, I was there, sitting at the kitchen table with photocopies of all the documents I had found spread out in front of me like cards in a game I had already lost. Jessica came in first, tired, kicking off the high heels that always bothered her. When she saw me there with the papers, her face changed instantly. The tired expression turned into something between guilt and defiance. "What is this?" she asked, though it was obvious from her face she knew exactly what it was. "This," I said, holding up the power of attorney, "is what you had me sign, telling me it was for health insurance. This," I held up the nursing home quote, "is where you plan to lock me up. And this," I held up the page with the calculations, "is how much money you'll make selling me off like old cattle." Gerald appeared in the kitchen doorway. When he saw the documents on the table, something in his demeanor shifted. He was no longer the man who feigned respect when he needed something. Now he showed his true colors. "What are you doing going through our things?" he yelled. "That's an invasion of privacy." "Our things?" I replied, and for the first time in years, my voice didn't tremble. "These are documents about my life, my house, my future, documents you've been preparing behind my back." Jessica came to the table and tried to grab the papers, but I snatched them first. "Mom, this isn't what it looks like," she said in that sweet voice she used as a child when she'd done something wrong. "We're just preparing for the future, for when you can't take care of yourself anymore." "Can't take care of myself?" I shouted, my voice echoing through the house. "I've taken care of myself my whole life. I took care of you by myself. I paid for this house by myself. And now you're telling me I can't take care of myself." "You're an old woman," Gerald answered with a cruelty that took my breath away. "Old people need supervision. They need someone smarter to make decisions for them." "Don't you dare talk to her like that," I yelled at my son-in-law. "This is my house. In my house, you will respect me." Jessica sided with her husband as always. "It's not your house anymore, Mom," she said, with a coldness I'd never heard from her before. "Read the papers. With the power of attorney you signed, I have the legal right to manage your assets. And I've decided it's best for everyone if you go to a place where you'll be cared for as you deserve." "As I deserve?" I stood up so fast the chair fell over behind me. "And how do I deserve to be cared for according to you?" "Away from here," Gerald answered. "Where you won't be in the way. Where we don't have to pretend we care about you when important people come over." Those words hit me like a slap. I felt the floor shift beneath my feet. "Pretend you care?" I whispered. "Mom, don't play the victim," Jessica said. "You know you don't fit into our lives anymore. The kids ask why their grandma is so different from their friends' grandmas. Gerald has to make up excuses when his bosses ask why you're living here instead of in a proper place for someone your age." "Someone my age," I repeated, each word a nail being driven into my heart. "And what age am I that's so terrible? Is 67 a contagious disease?" "It's not the age," Gerald yelled. "It's everything else. The way you dress like you're going to a county fair. The way you talk that sounds so uneducated. Your friends who come here shouting and gossiping. All of it." Just then, the kids came in through the back door. Sebastian and Camilla, my grandchildren who used to run and hug me, stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, watching the argument with frightened faces. "What's wrong?" Sebastian asked in his little 8-year-old voice. "Nothing, sweetie," Jessica said immediately, her tone changing completely. "Grandma and we are just talking about grown-up things." "Why is Grandma yelling?" Camilla asked. "Because she's upset," Gerald answered. "Because she doesn't want to understand that things change and that sometimes adults have to make difficult decisions." I knelt in front of my grandchildren, tears streaming down my cheeks. "My loves," I said, "do you want your grandma to leave this house?" The children looked at each other, confused. Sebastian came over and hugged me. "I don't want you to go, Grandma. Where would you go?" But Camilla, who was 10 and had overheard more adult conversations, looked at me with a seriousness that broke my heart. "Grandma," she said, "my dad says that old people go to special places where they get better care. Like my other great-grandma who's in that nice house with the gardens. Your dad says that? I asked, looking at Gerald with hatred. Yes, Camilla continued. He says it's better for everyone. That old people are happier with other old people their own age. Jessica pulled the children away from me. Go to your room and do your homework, she ordered. We'll have dinner later. When the children left, the silence in the kitchen was so heavy, it felt like we were suffocating. You've even turned my grandchildren against me, I said. We haven't turned anyone against you, Jessica replied. We've just explained the reality, that you're a burden we can no longer carry. A burden? My voice broke completely. That's what I am to you? A burden? Yes, Gerald yelled. An economic, emotional, and social burden. Do you think it's easy for us to explain to people why we have an old woman living here like she's our housekeeper? I'm not a housekeeper. I am your wife's mother. I am the owner of this house. You were the owner, Jessica corrected me. Now I manage your assets. And I've decided that this house is too big and expensive to maintain. We're going to sell it and buy something smaller. You'll be much better off in a place with nurses, activities for people your age, people who understand your needs. My needs, I repeated. And what are my needs according to you? Medical care? Gerald said, ticking them off on his fingers. Constant supervision, managed medications, activities appropriate for your mental condition. My mental condition? My mind is perfectly fine. Mom, Jessica said with that exaggerated patience one uses with small children. A mentally stable person doesn't sit in her room crying for days. She doesn't dramatize every conversation. She doesn't invent problems where there are none. Invent problems? You planning to lock me up in a nursing home is a problem I invented? It's not a prison, Gerald yelled. It's a solution. A solution so you can get the attention you need, and we can live our lives without having to worry if you've eaten, if you've taken your pills, if you've hurt yourself, if you've wandered off. I don't take any pills. I don't wander off. I don't need anyone to take care of me. Really? Jessica pulled out her phone and showed me something. Then what is this? On the screen was a photo of me, taken from an upstairs window. I was in the yard watering my plants, but I was wearing a blouse that didn't match my skirt. I took this photo a week ago, she said. Look at how you're dressed. Look at your hair, your posture. Is that a woman who is taking good care of herself? I looked at the picture and saw myself through their eyes. An older woman, a bit stooped, wearing clothes that didn't match, with messy hair because I'd been gardening. I saw myself as they saw me, old, sloppy, a burden. Besides, Jessica continued, Mrs. Rodriguez from next door called me yesterday. She said you haven't left the house in days, that she sees you talking to yourself in the yard, that you seem confused. I'm not confused. I'm sad. I'm sad because my own daughter treats me like garbage. You see? Gerald said to Jessica. This is exactly what we were talking about. Extreme dramatics. Constant victimhood. We can't take this anymore. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Jessica went to answer it, and came back with a woman I didn't recognize. About 40 years old, dressed formally, holding a clipboard. Mom, Jessica said. This is Miss Patricia Mendoza. She's a social worker specializing in elder care. She's here to do an evaluation. An evaluation? For what? The social worker approached me with a professional smile. Mrs. Herrera, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm here from Adult Protective Services to conduct an assessment of your general condition and determine the best care options for you. I didn't ask for any evaluation. I don't need any care. Ma'am, I understand you might feel nervous, the social worker said. But this is just a conversation. Your daughter is concerned for your well-being and wants to ensure you have all the help you need. I looked at Jessica, at Gerald, at this stranger who had come to evaluate me like a sick animal, and I understood it had all been planned. The confrontation, the argument, it was all to justify what they had already decided to do with me. No, I told them. I won't allow this. Mom, Jessica said, you don't have a choice. For the first time in my life, I looked at my daughter, and I didn't see the little girl I had raised with so much love. I saw a cruel stranger who had decided to destroy me for her own convenience, and for the first time in my life, I decided I wasn't going to let her. No, I repeated to the social worker, looking her directly in the eye. I will not answer any questions. I will not allow you to evaluate me like a sick animal. And you will leave my house immediately. Ms. Mendoza blinked, surprised. She clearly didn't expect a confused old woman to speak to her with such firmness. Mrs. Herrera, I understand you feel overwhelmed, but this is a standard procedure to ensure your well-being. My well-being, I interrupted, is something I ensure myself, just as I have for 67 years. Jessica came toward me with that exasperated look she used to get as a teenager when she didn't get her way. Mom, don't be difficult. The social worker just wants to help you. Help me? I laughed. But it wasn't a happy sound. Who is she helping exactly? Me or you two, so you can get rid of me with a clear conscience? Gerald turned red with rage. Enough of your drama. Ma'am, do your job. This woman is clearly not in a condition to make rational decisions. It was in that moment that something inside me changed forever. Something that had been dormant for years, crushed by guilt and fear and the need to be loved, snapped awake. It was the same strength that had seen me through after my husband left, the same strength that made me work day and night to raise my daughter. But now, I wasn't using it to protect others. I was using it to protect myself. Ma'am, I said to the social worker with a calm that surprised even me, let me explain something to you. I hired a lawyer this afternoon. His name is Rodrigo Vargas. His office is at 247 Flores Street. And first thing tomorrow morning, he will be filing a complaint for fraud, financial elder abuse, and domestic abuse against these two individuals. The silence that followed my words was so deep you could hear the clock ticking in the living room. What? Jessica whispered. You heard me. That power of attorney you tricked me into signing is void. It's fraudulent. And my lawyer already has copies of all the documents I found in your room. Gerald went pale. You're lying. You don't have money to hire a lawyer. No money? I laughed again, and this time there was a hint of satisfaction in it. Oh, Gerald. Do you really think I'm so foolish that I haven't saved anything for an emergency? Do you think a woman who raised a child alone for 30 years didn't learn how to hide some cash? It was true. All these years, whenever I could, I'd set aside $20, $50 bills. I kept them in a cookie tin hidden behind the canned goods in the pantry. Jessica never cooked, so she had never discovered my little treasure. I had nearly $5,000 saved up. Besides, I continued, it turns out Mr. Vargas is the son of a woman whose wedding dress I sewed 20 years ago. When I told him my situation, he offered to help me pro bono until we get the house back. The social worker cleared her throat uncomfortably. Well, I believe, if there are legal matters involved, it's best I return at another time when things are clearer. You don't need to come back, I said. There won't be another time. I am of sound mind, and as long as I am, no one is going to decide for me where or how I live. After the social worker left, Jessica and Gerald just stood there like statues, processing what had just happened. You can't do this, Jessica finally said. I'm your daughter. I only want what's best for you. What's best for me? I asked. Or what's best for you? Both, she shouted. You'll be better cared for in a specialized place, and we'll be able to live our lives without worrying. Without worrying, I repeated. That's exactly what you want. To live your life without a single thought for the woman who sacrificed everything so you could have that life. That night, for the first time in months, I cooked only for myself. I made myself huevos rancheros just the way I like them, with lots of jalapenos and onion. I sat at my table in my kitchen and ate peacefully, savoring every bite. I didn't wash the dishes they'd left in the sink. I didn't pick up the clothes they'd left on the living room floor. I didn't make coffee for the next morning. For the first time in years, I went to bed early and slept straight through the night. The next morning, I got up early, but not to make breakfast for the family. I got up to go to the bank. At the Chase branch on the corner, where I'd had my account for 15 years, I asked the teller to explain all the transactions from the last 6 months. What I found left me cold. Jessica had been withdrawing money from my account every month. Small amounts at first, $50 here, $100 there. But in the last 2 months, the amounts had increased. She had taken $300 in April and $500 in May. How is it possible for her to take money from my account? I asked the bank manager. Ma'am, according to our records, you authorized your daughter as a co-signer and gave her withdrawal privileges. Another document I had signed without reading. Another trap I had fallen into by blindly trusting my own daughter. I want to immediately revoke all privileges my daughter has on this account, I said. And I want to change all my passwords and PINs. Of course, ma'am. Shall I issue you a new debit card as well? Yes, and I want the old one canceled immediately. When I left the bank, I felt like I was breathing fresh air for the first time in months. I walked through the downtown streets of San Antonio, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. I stopped at a small diner near the Alamo and ordered a full breakfast: chilaquiles with sour cream and cheese, refried beans, hot coffee, and a pastry. The man behind the counter was kind and told me about his family while I ate. It had been so long since I'd had a normal conversation with someone who didn't see me as a burden. Afterwards, I went to a stationery store and bought a new notebook and a pen. I sat on a bench in Brackenridge Park and wrote a list of everything I needed to do. Change all the locks on the house. Review every legal document I've ever signed. Write a new will. Open a new bank account at a different bank. Talk to my grandchildren without their parents present. When I got home around noon, Jessica was waiting for me in the living room, furious. "Where were you?" she yelled. "I've been calling you all morning. I thought something happened to you." "I was taking care of my affairs," I answered calmly. "What affairs? You don't have any affairs to take care of without consulting me. I have a whole world of affairs to take care of, and I don't have to consult you about anything. You are not my mother, Jessica. I am yours." "Mom, enough of this nonsense. Let's sit down and talk like civilized people." "No," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. "We are done talking. We are done negotiating. This is my house, and these are my rules. Either you respect me as a mother and as the owner of this house, or you can leave." "Leave? Where are we supposed to go?" "That's your problem. You are adults with jobs and incomes. I am an elderly woman who has earned the right to live in peace in her own home. You can't kick us out. Your grandchildren live here. My grandchildren are welcome anytime they come to see their grandmother with love and respect, not to repeat the horrible things you teach them about me." Jessica was quiet for a moment, and for the first time in months, I saw something that looked like fear in her eyes. "Mom," she said in a softer voice, "we can't leave. We don't have the money for rent right now. Give us some time." "Time?" I asked. "Like the time you gave me to prepare for the nursing home? Like the time you gave me to say goodbye to my own house before you sold it? That's different." "It's not different. It's exactly the same. You have 1 week to find another place to live." "1 week? You're crazy. You can't find a place in 1 week." "You can when you're truly desperate," I told her. "Like I was truly desperate to work day and night to raise you. Like I was truly desperate to sell everything I owned to pay for your education. When you're truly desperate, you find solutions." That night, as I ate dinner alone in my kitchen, I heard Jessica and Gerald arguing in their room. Their voices were muffled through the walls, but I could make out the panic in their tones. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel guilt. For the first time in years, I felt something I had completely forgotten. I felt peace. The next day, when I woke up, I found an envelope under my door. Inside were 5 $100 bills and a note in Jessica's handwriting. "Mom, this is the money I took from your account. I didn't know you'd notice. Forgive me. We don't want to leave. This is our home too. Please, can we talk?" I took the money and the note, went out to the backyard, and burned them in the metal drum I used for trash. As I watched them turn to ash, I felt something else burn away too. The desperate need to be loved that had kept me in chains for so many years. I didn't need them to love me anymore. I needed them to respect me. And if they couldn't respect me, then I didn't need them in my life. The next few days were a silent war. Jessica and Gerald hadn't left, but they weren't speaking to me either. They moved through the house like resentful ghosts, whispering to each other, making mysterious calls from their room, leaving at all hours without saying where they were going. I continued with my new routine. I got up when I wanted, ate whatever I felt like, And in the afternoons, I sat on the patio watering my plants without having to listen to comments about how I was wasting time on useless things. On Thursday morning, as I was walking to the corner store for groceries, I ran into my old friend, Brenda. I hadn't seen her in months because Jessica always found an excuse for her not to visit. "Rose!" she called out from the canned goods aisle. "It's a miracle seeing you. I thought you had already moved." "Moved? Why would I move?" Brenda came closer with that look of someone who has major news to share. "Well, because your daughter has been telling everyone in the neighborhood that you're moving into a luxury assisted living facility in Bourne, that she sold your house and they're moving to a gated community in Alamo Heights." I felt like a bucket of ice water had been thrown over me. "What did you say?" "It's true, hun. She's been telling it like it's great news. That you're finally going to get the medical attention you need, that it was about time you were cared for by professionals." She even showed some of the neighbors pictures of the place on her phone. "And when does she say this is happening?" "She said you're moving next week, that everything's already arranged." I walked back home so fast I was almost running. I arrived sweating and shaking with rage. Jessica was in the living room talking cheerfully on the phone. Yes, we're having a little get-together on Sunday to say goodbye," I heard her say. "Nothing too big, just close family and a few neighbors. It's going to be very emotional." When she saw me walk in, she hung up immediately. "A get-together to say goodbye to me?" I shouted. "What are you talking about?" "Mom, sit down. We need to talk." "I'm not sitting down. Explain to me right now what this is about, a farewell party." Gerald came out of the kitchen with an expression I'd never seen on him before. It wasn't his usual contempt. It was something worse. It was pity. "Mrs. Herrera," he said in a syrupy voice that made me sick, "we've been thinking a lot about what happened the other day, and we realized that you're right about many things." "I'm right now? About what?" "That you deserve respect," he continued. "That you deserve to be treated better. That's why we decided that instead of sending you to just any place, we're going to find the best facility in all of San Antonio. A truly elegant place, with gardens, activities, people of your own social standing." "And who asked you to look for anything? I'm not going anywhere." Jessica approached me with that fake smile she used to manipulate me. "Mommy, we already spoke with the administrator. It's beautiful. It has a pool, a ballroom. They even have church services on Sundays. And the best part is, you'll be with people your own age who understand what you're going through." "I'm not going through anything. You are the ones putting me through this." "Mom, we've already made the decision," Jessica said, all the fakeness gone from her voice. "It's what's best for everyone, including you." "You've made the decision? Without consulting me?" "We consulted you the other day and you became hysterical," Gerald said. "It was clear you're not in a position to make rational decisions." It was then that I understood that everything that had happened in the last week had been an act. My confrontation, my firmness, my threat with the lawyer, none of it had really mattered to them. They had just been waiting for the right moment to move forward with their original plan. "Besides," Jessica continued, "I already spoke with Mr. Rodriguez." "What, Mr. Rodriguez?" "The lawyer you said you hired. He doesn't exist, Mom. There's no lawyer with that name at the address you gave." I felt the floor open up beneath my feet. It was true. I hadn't hired a lawyer. I had lied in a moment of desperation, thinking it would buy me time to find a real solution. "You see," Gerald said with a cruel smile, "this is why you need supervision. You're starting to confuse reality with your fantasies." "I'm not confusing anything. I just wanted to scare you into leaving me alone." "And that doesn't seem concerning to you?" Jessica asked. "Does a mentally stable person invent non-existent lawyers? A desperate person does whatever she can to defend herself." "Mom, that's enough. The move is on Sunday. It's all arranged." "The move? What move?" Jessica took out her phone and showed me a series of photos. They were photos of a nice-looking place, white buildings with gardens, well-dressed seniors sitting on patios, an elegant dining room. "This is going to be your new home," she told me. "It's called Serenity Gardens. It has everything you need. And my house. What's going to happen to my house?" "We already sold it," Gerald said, as casually as if he were talking about the weather. "Well, we're about to. We already have a buyer. A developer who's going to build a condo building. You can't sell my house. I canceled all the legal powers. Mom, Jessica said with exaggerated patience, you went to the bank and made a scene, but the other documents are still valid. Only the one for your checking account was canceled. The power of attorney to manage your property is still in effect. That's impossible. It's not impossible. It's legal. The notary explained that as long as there's no medical declaration of mental incompetence, the power of attorney stands. And so far, no doctor has said you're incompetent. Gerald smiled cruelly. But if you keep behaving irrationally, we'll have to request a formal psychiatric evaluation. And something tells me that after all this drama, any psychiatrist will find evidence of cognitive decline. You had this all planned from the beginning. Of course we had it planned, Jessica said. Did you think we were going to improvise something this important? We've been preparing this for months, since before my graduation. Since before your graduation? Is that why you didn't invite me? So I wouldn't talk to people who know me? Exactly. We couldn't risk you making a scene in front of important people. At that moment, the children came down from their room. Sebastian and Camilla approached me with faces of feigned sadness. Grandma, Camilla said, my mom explained that you're going to a very nice place where they'll take better care of you. And what do you two think about that? I asked, kneeling in front of them. Well, it's okay, Sebastian said. My dad says you'll be happier there, that you'll have friends your own age, and will come visit you on Sundays, Camilla added. If you behave. Even my own grandchildren had learned to treat me like a problem child. And what if I don't want to go? I asked them. What if I want to stay in my house with you? The children looked at each other, confused. But Grandma, Sebastian said, it's not your house anymore. They already sold it. We're going to move to a new, prettier house. A new house? Yeah, Camilla said excitedly. In a gated community with a pool and everything. My dad says we're finally going to live like respectable people. Gerald came over and put his hands on the children's shoulders. Go upstairs and play, he told them. The adults need to finish talking. When the children were gone, I stood there in the middle of my own living room, surrounded by the family I had raised and supported, finally understanding that to them, I wasn't a person. I was an obstacle. Do you know what hurts the most? I said. It's not that you want to put me in a home. It's not that you want to sell my house. It's that you've brainwashed my grandchildren into thinking this is okay. We didn't brainwash them, Jessica said. We explained the reality, that older people need special care and we can't provide it. What special care do I need? Tell me, what special care do I need? For starters, medical supervision, Gerald said, counting on his fingers. Managing your medication. Help with bathing, with dressing, with remembering important things. I bathe myself. I dress myself. And I don't take any medication because I don't need any. Not yet, Jessica said. But that will change. And when it does, who's going to take care of you? Us? Are we supposed to drop our lives to care for someone who's only going to get worse? Get worse? But I'm fine. You're fine now. In a few years, you'll have Alzheimer's or dementia, or you'll fall and break a hip. And then what? Are we supposed to quit our jobs to take care of you 24/7? And that's why you want to send me away now? For something that might happen in the future? Exactly, Gerald said. It's called planning. Something intelligent people do. I sat down in my armchair, the same one where I had watched my grandchildren grow up, where I had comforted Jessica when she cried over boyfriends, where I had planned 1,000 family dinners I thought had meant something. All right, I said. I'll go. Jessica and Gerald looked at each other surprised. Really? Jessica asked. Really? But on one condition. What condition? I want you to explain one thing. I want you to look me in the eye and tell me if you ever, at any point in your lives, actually cared about me. Genuinely cared. Not out of obligation. Not out of pity. Not out of convenience. Love. Jessica opened her mouth to answer, but no sound came out. Because I need to understand, I continued, if all the love I thought was between us was real, or if I was always just a burden you tolerated until you could get rid of me. Gerald cleared his throat. Ma'am, of course Jessica loves you. That's why she's doing this. Because she loves you enough to make sure you have the best possible care. I'm not asking you, I said without looking at him. I'm asking my daughter. Jessica looked me in the eyes for the first time in weeks. And in those eyes, I saw the answer I had been dreading for months. Mom, she finally said, of course I love you. But love doesn't mean having to sacrifice my entire life for you. It means doing what's best for everyone. Oh, and what's best for everyone? For you to be where you can be cared for professionally, and for us to live our lives without guilt. Without guilt, I repeated. That's the important part, isn't it? Without guilt. She didn't answer. That night, when everyone was asleep, I got up and went to the drawer where I kept the deed to the house. I took it out and sat at the kitchen table to read it carefully. And there, in the fine print, I found something they had overlooked. A clause specifying that the house could not be sold without my personal signature in front of a notary, regardless of any power of attorney granted. I smiled for the first time in days. It turned out my late husband had been smarter than I remembered. On Friday morning, after Jessica and Gerald left for work, I walked out of the house with the deed under my arm. This time, I went to find a real lawyer. Rodrigo Vargas did in fact exist, and his office was exactly where I'd said it was, 247 Flores Street. He was an older man, maybe 60, with a well-kept gray beard and glasses that gave him an air of being serious but kind. When I explained my situation and showed him the documents, his face grew more and more grave. Mrs. Herrera, he said after reviewing everything carefully, what your daughter and son-in-law are doing is called financial elder abuse, and it is a serious crime. But most importantly, you are correct. They cannot sell this house without your physical presence and signature before a notary. Are you sure? Completely. This specific clause your husband drafted is ironclad. Regardless of any powers you may have granted, the sale of real estate requires your personal and non-transferable consent. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. So what can I do? We can immediately invalidate all the powers of attorney you signed, on the grounds that they were obtained through fraudulent inducement. We can also file a criminal complaint for fraud and abuse. But I'll be honest with you. It will be a long and painful process, especially since it involves your own family. Do you have children, Mr. Vargas? I have 3. Can you imagine one of them doing something like this to you? Mr. Vargas took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly. No, ma'am. I cannot. But unfortunately, in my profession, I've seen it all. And I can tell you that the saddest cases are exactly like yours. Families torn apart by money. So what do you recommend? That we fight this legally, but also that you prepare yourself emotionally. Once we start this process, there's no turning back. Your relationship with your daughter will be changed forever. Mr. Vargas, I said, my relationship with my daughter already changed forever. Now I just want to salvage what's left of my life. I signed all the necessary papers and left his office feeling stronger than I had in months. I had a plan. I had legal backing. And for the first time, I had hope that this wasn't going to end the way they wanted. But when I got home that afternoon, the cruelest surprise of all was waiting for me. An ambulance was parked in front of my house. Paramedics were walking up the front steps. Curious neighbors were peeking out their windows. And in the middle of the chaos, Jessica was crying dramatically while Gerald comforted her. "Mom!" she shouted when she saw me. "Thank God you're here. We thought something terrible had happened to you. What's going on here? Why is there an ambulance?" "You disappeared all morning," she said, with tears in her eyes that looked genuine. "We got home from work and you were gone. You left the stove on, the front door unlocked, and there were clothes thrown all over the house as if you'd run out in a panic." "What? That's not true. I turned everything off before I left." One of the paramedics approached me. "Are you Mrs. Rose Herrera?" "Yes, but I don't understand what's happening." "Your family reported that you left the house in a state of confusion and hadn't returned all day. They asked us to check you out when you got back to make sure you're okay." "But I'm perfectly fine. I just went out to run some errands." "What errands, Mom?" Jessica asked. "Why didn't you tell us where you were going? You had us worried sick." In that moment, I understood what was happening. They had staged this entire scene for the neighbors, to create evidence that I was confused, and it was dangerous to leave me alone. "And why did you report that I left the stove on when I know I turned it off?" Mom, Gerald said with that condescending tone I knew so well. When we got here, the burner was on high. You could have burned the whole house down. That's a lie. Ma'am, the paramedic said to me, can we please check your vital signs, just to make sure you're okay? I couldn't refuse without looking even more confused. I let them check me over as more neighbors gathered to watch the spectacle. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door came over to Jessica. Oh, honey, what a scare. Is your mom all right? We don't know, Jessica answered, wiping away tears that hadn't been there 2 minutes before. Lately, she's been very forgetful. Sometimes she doesn't know where she is. Sometimes she doesn't recognize people. The doctors say it could be the beginning of dementia. That's not true, I yelled. I don't have dementia. I'm perfectly fine. Everyone looked at me with that pitiful expression people get when someone is shouting things they consider irrational. Mom, calm down, Jessica said, moving to hug me, but I pulled away. Don't touch me. And don't tell me to calm down. Tell them the truth. Tell them you want to put me in a home to take my house. More neighbors had gathered, and now there was a small crowd watching me lose my mind in the middle of the street. Mrs. Herrera, the paramedic said, we're going to recommend you go to the hospital to get checked out more thoroughly. Just as a precaution. I don't need to go to the hospital. I need these people to stop lying. See? Jessica whispered to the paramedic, just loud enough for me to hear. She gets like this lately. Very aggressive. Very paranoid. It was then that I realized what was really happening. They hadn't just planned to put me in a home. They had planned to create medical evidence that I was mentally incompetent. If I got in that ambulance, if I went to the hospital, they would evaluate me in a state of distress. They would talk to doctors who only knew their version of events. They would create a medical record that would justify everything they wanted to do to me. No, I said. I am not going to the hospital. Mom, you have to go. It's for your own good. My own good? I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Everything you've done has been for my own good. Excluding me from your graduation was for my own good. Stealing my money was for my own good. Selling my house is for my own good. Ma'am, the paramedic said, I understand you're upset, but we really need you to come with us to be evaluated. And if I refuse? In that case, we would have to call the authorities to determine if you are a danger to yourself or others. There it was. The final trap. Either I went voluntarily to the hospital where I'd be evaluated as an elderly woman having a breakdown, or they would take me by force, which would be further evidence of my mental incompetence. Fine, I said finally. I'll go to the hospital, but I want witnesses to come with me. What witnesses? Jessica asked. Mrs. Rodriguez, Mr. Davis, Mrs. Garcia, I said, pointing to the neighbors standing there. I want them to come with me and hear exactly what the doctors say. Mom, that's not necessary. Yes, it is. If I'm as unwell as you say, you shouldn't be afraid of other people hearing the medical diagnosis. Jessica and Gerald looked at each other, and I could see the panic in their eyes. They hadn't expected me to ask for witnesses. Also, I continued, I want to call my lawyer to be present as well. Your lawyer? Gerald asked. Mom, you don't have a lawyer. I pulled out the card Mr. Vargas had given me. Rodrigo Vargas, attorney at law, I read aloud. 247 Flores Street. Do you want me to call him so you can confirm he exists? This time, Jessica went truly pale. When did you hire a lawyer? This morning, when I was lost and confused. Turns out a senile old woman can get a lot of useful things done when she puts her mind to it. The paramedic looked increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. Ma'am, if you have legal representation, perhaps it's best you resolve this matter first before going to the hospital. No, Gerald said desperately. She needs immediate medical attention. Look at her. Talking about non-existent lawyers, creating fantasies. The lawyer is not a fantasy, I said calmly. And if you want me to go to the hospital, fine. But it will be with my lawyer and with witnesses present, so that everything is perfectly clear. Jessica came close to me and spoke in a very low voice. Mom, don't make this any harder than it has to be. You know we'll win in the end. You know you have no way of fighting us. You know what, honey? I answered loudly so everyone could hear. You're right. Maybe you will win in the end, but you're not going to win quietly anymore. You're not going to win without everyone knowing exactly what kind of people you are. I turned to the neighbors still standing there. I want all of you to know something, I yelled. These people here, crying and pretending to care about me, are the same people who have been stealing money from my bank account, who excluded me from my own daughter's graduation, and who have been planning to put me in a nursing home to sell my house and keep the money. Mom, stop it, Jessica screamed. No, I screamed back. No more stop it, no more silence, no more pretending that you are the victims and I'm the crazy one. I turned to the paramedics. If you're going to take me to the hospital, then do it. But I want it on record that I am going under protest, and I demand my lawyer be present for any evaluation. One of the paramedics spoke into his radio. After a few minutes, he approached me. Ma'am, given that you have legal representation and this appears to be a civil family dispute, we are going to recommend you resolve the matter through legal channels before proceeding with any medical evaluation. What does that mean? Gerald asked. It means that if you believe she requires involuntary medical care, you'll have to obtain a court order. We cannot force a conscious person with a lawyer to receive treatment she does not want. Jessica's jaw dropped. But she's clearly unwell. Ma'am, the paramedic said to her, your mother is agitated, but she is conscious, oriented, and clearly understands her rights. We can't do anything more here. The paramedics packed up their gear and left. The neighbors, seeing the show was over, also began to disperse. But I knew the news of what happened would spread through the entire neighborhood before the day was over. When we were finally alone in the house, Jessica and Gerald looked at me with a hatred so pure it sent a chill down my spine. This isn't over, Gerald said. You're right, I answered. It's not. Because tomorrow my lawyer is starting the process to nullify every document you tricked me into signing, and then we'll see who has to find a new place to live. That night, lying in bed, I heard Jessica and Gerald arguing in their room. This time they weren't whispering. They were shouting, and their voices carried clearly through the walls. This is all your fault, Gerald yelled. You said it would be easy. You said she was a helpless old woman. I didn't know she would fight back like this, Jessica screamed back. She's always been so compliant. Well, she's not compliant now. And because of you, we're going to lose everything. My fault. It was your idea to rush her. It was your idea to stage this whole scene with the ambulance. Because you said we needed medical evidence. I listened to them argue for hours, blaming each other, planning new strategies, talking about me as if I were a business deal gone wrong. And for the first time in months, I fell asleep smiling, because I had finally understood something very important. I wasn't the problem. They were, and problems can be solved. On Monday morning, Mr. Vargas arrived at my house with all the necessary documents. Jessica and Gerald had left early for work, but I had left a note for them on the kitchen table. My lawyer will be here at 10 a.m. If you wish to be present for the revocation of the power of attorney, you are welcome. If not, the legal effect will be the same. They came rushing in at 10:05, with panicked looks on their faces that gave me a satisfaction I didn't know I could feel. Good morning, Mr. Vargas said, with the professional courtesy that only experienced lawyers can maintain in tense situations. I am Mr. Vargas. I am here to notify you that, based on state law regarding fraudulent inducement, we will be proceeding with the immediate revocation of all powers granted by Mrs. Herrera. That's not legal, Gerald said. Those papers were signed before a notary, and they will be revoked before a notary, Mr. Vargas replied. This afternoon, at 3 o'clock, at the notary's office, Mrs. Herrera will appear in person to nullify all previously granted powers. She can't do that, Jessica yelled. We have rights. What rights? The lawyer asked. The right to manage someone else's assets against their will? The right to dispose of a house that doesn't belong to you? The right to steal money from bank accounts? We're not stealing anything. We're just protecting the interests of a person who can no longer protect herself. Mr. Vargas looked at me with an expression that seemed to say, Is this really your daughter? Mrs. Herrera, he said to me, do you feel incapable of protecting your own interests? I feel perfectly capable, I answered. What I can't do is protect myself from the people I trusted who abused that trust. Mom, Jessica said, her voice now sounding desperate. "We can still fix this. It doesn't have to go to court. We can sit down and talk like a family." "Like a family?" I laughed. "We're a family now? Now that you need me not to revoke the papers you stole from me?" "I didn't steal anything. Everything I did was for your own good." "My own good? Selling my house without asking me was for my own good? Stealing my money was for my own good? Excluding me from your graduation was for my own good?" Gerald approached the lawyer with the aggressive posture he used when he felt cornered. "Sir, you don't understand the situation. This woman has mental problems. We had to call the paramedics yesterday because she disappeared all day and came back confused." "Confused?" Mr. Vargas raised an eyebrow. "You mean confused like when she retained my professional services, explained her situation with perfect clarity, and signed all the necessary documents to protect her rights? That's different." "Different in what way? A person with mental problems can hire a lawyer but can't decide about her own house?" Jessica sat on the sofa and started to cry. But these weren't her old, manipulative tears. These were tears of defeat. "What are we going to do now?" she sobbed. "Where are we going to go? How are we going to explain to the kids that we lost the house?" "The house wasn't yours to lose," I said. "It was never yours. It was mine. And you never would have lost it if you had just treated me with respect." "We did treat you with respect. You excluded me from your graduation with respect? You stole my money with respect? You locked me in my own house with respect?" Mr. Vargas checked his watch. "Mrs. Herrera, we should be going. The appointment at the notary is at 3, and we need to review some documents beforehand." "And then what?" Gerald asked. "Are you going to kick us out of the house?" I stood up from my chair and looked at both of them. For the first time in months, I felt taller than them. "I'm giving you 1 month," I said. 1 month to find another place to live. It's more than you were going to give me." 1 month? It's impossible to find a place in 1 month. "Gerald," I said, "you make 3 times what I made when I supported both of you for years. If I could raise a family on a shoestring budget, you can find a place to live on your salaries." 3 hours later, I walked out of the notary's office feeling like I could breathe fresh air for the first time in months. All the powers of attorney had been nullified. I had regained full control over my house, my bank accounts, my life. Mr. Vargas treated me to a celebratory coffee at a restaurant in a historic hotel downtown. "So what will you do now?" he asked as we drank our coffee and shared some pastries. "Live," I said. "Just live. And your family?" "My family. We'll see. The children will always be my grandchildren. But Jessica and Gerald will have to decide if they want to be part of my life with respect, or not be part of my life at all. That's a very brave decision." "It's not brave. It's necessary. At my age, I don't have time to waste on people who don't value me." That afternoon when I returned home, the children were in the yard playing. Sebastian ran to me. "Grandma, is it true we're moving?" "You're moving with your parents. I'm staying here." "But why? Don't you love us anymore?" I knelt in front of him and took his hands. "I love you more than anything in the world. But your parents and I have grown-up problems we need to solve. That doesn't mean you and I won't see each other anymore. Will you visit us at the new house?" "If you want me to, and if your parents invite me with respect, of course I will." Camilla came over too. "Grandma, is it true you're sick in the head?" "Who told you that?" "My dad. He says that's why you have to go live in a special place." "Camilla, my love, I'm not sick in the head, and I'm not going to live in any special place. I'm staying right here, in my house, because this is my house and I decide where I live." "So my dad lied?" It was an impossible question to answer without destroying the children's relationship with their father. But I couldn't let them keep brainwashing them either. "Your dad is very worried. And sometimes when people are very worried, they say things that aren't exactly true." The children looked at each other with that wisdom kids sometimes have when they sense adults aren't telling them the whole truth. "Can we come see you when we live in the new house?" Sebastian asked. "Whenever you want. This will always be your house too." The next 3 weeks were the most peaceful I'd had in years. Jessica and Gerald frantically searched for a house, and I let them. I didn't interfere, I didn't pressure them, but I didn't help them either. During those days, I rediscovered things about myself I had forgotten. I rediscovered that I liked to sleep in on Sundays. That I enjoyed cooking just for myself, experimenting with recipes I'd wanted to try but that the family wouldn't like. That I loved being in my yard tending to my plants without hearing comments about how I was wasting my time. I also rediscovered my friends. Brenda came to visit and we talked until 10 at night, like we hadn't in years. She told me she had gotten divorced the year before. "And you don't feel lonely?" I asked. "At first I did," she confessed. "But then I realized there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. I was lonelier living with a man who despised me than I am now. Living alone, but in peace." Her words resonated deep within me. I had been feeling lonely for years, even when surrounded by family. A week before the month was up, Jessica knocked on my bedroom door. It was the first time we'd spoken alone since the day at the notary's office. "Can I come in? It's your house for 3 more days." She came in and sat on the edge of my bed, just like she did when she was a little girl coming to tell me about her problems at school. "Mom, I want to apologize." "For what?" "For everything. For the graduation, for the documents, for treating you like you were a burden." "And why are you apologizing now? Because you realized you lost?" She was quiet for a moment. "No, I'm apologizing because these past few days, I've been watching how you are when you don't have to defend yourself from us. And I realized you're not sick. You're not confused. You were sad. And why was I sad? Because we were hurting you. And I didn't want to see it." Her words touched me, but I no longer felt that desperate need to forgive immediately just to keep the peace. "Jessica, I appreciate your apology, but an apology doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't erase the damage you did. It doesn't erase the fact that you were willing to destroy my life for your own convenience. I know. Is there anything I can do to fix it?" "Yes. You can leave my house in 3 days as we agreed. You can take your children and raise them in a place with different values than the ones you've shown me. And you can decide if you want a relationship with me based on mutual respect, or if you'd rather have no relationship at all. What would you prefer?" "I'd prefer to have a daughter who treats me like her mother, not like her housekeeper or her burden. But if that daughter doesn't exist, then I'd prefer to have no daughter." She left the room crying, but this time I didn't feel guilty for her tears. The day they moved out, the children hugged me and cried. I cried too, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of liberation. 6 months later, I live alone in my house, and I don't feel lonely. Brenda visits me twice a week. Mr. Davis, the neighbor across the street, helps me with heavy yard work, and I cook him tamales on Sundays. I have a routine that I like and that no one criticizes. Jessica calls me every couple of weeks. The conversations are polite but distant. The children come to see me one Saturday a month. Gerald never comes, and that's perfectly fine with me. Last week, Sebastian asked me, "Grandma, are you mad at my mom?" "I'm not mad, my love. I'm disappointed, but I'm not sad anymore." "What's the difference?" "The difference is that when you're sad, you want things to change. When you're disappointed, you understand that some things won't change, and you're at peace with that." "And are you at peace?" "Yes, my love. For the first time in a long time, I am at peace. Because I learned something that took me 67 years to understand, that you don't beg for love, you don't buy it, and you don't get it by sacrificing your dignity. That it's okay to be alone if the alternative is being with people who make you feel lonely. That it's never too late to set boundaries, to say no, to demand respect. That mothers also have the right to be happy, not just to make others happy. And that sometimes, for something beautiful to grow in your life, you have to have the courage to close the door on what's destroying you. Even if it hurts. Even if it's your own family. Even if people don't understand. Because deserving respect is non-negotiable, and dignity is not for sale. My name is Rose Herrera. I'm 67 years old. And I didn't break. I just learned to live without asking for permission to exist. Have you, or someone you know, been through something like this, where the family you love most ends up being the one that hurts you the most? Tell me about it in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Because maybe there's someone else out there who needs to hear that it's never too late to reclaim your dignity, no matter how old you are.